Her baby was freezing in her arms at a midnight gas station. No money, no shelter, nowhere to go. Then a little boy tugged his father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, help her." What she didn't know, the man whose 6-year-old son just saved her life was the most dangerous mafia boss in New Jersey. And he wasn't letting her go. The fluorescent lights of the quick-stop gas station flickered like dying fireflies against the midnight sky. Matteo Ricci pulled his black Mercedes SUV up to Pump 7, killed the engine, and glanced at the rearview mirror. Leo was fast asleep in his booster seat, mouth open, still clutching the toy dinosaur his grandmother had given him 3 hours ago. Matteo stepped out into the cold November air, his breath forming small clouds. The temperature had dropped to 32 degrees, freezing point. He swiped his card and began pumping gas, his mind replaying the evening. His mother had cried again when they'd left, holding Leo too tight, whispering prayers in Italian. She always did that now, ever since Sophia died 2 years ago. As if prayers could build walls thick enough to keep death away from those you loved. "Daddy." Matteo looked up. Leo was awake, his small face pressed against the window, his breath fogging the glass. "What is it, buddy?" "We'll be home soon." "Daddy, come here. Quick." The urgency in his son's voice made Matteo release the pump handle and walk to Leo's door. He opened it. "What's wrong?" Leo pointed past the gas pumps toward the vending machines near the station's entrance. "That lady. Her baby's cold. Look at her baby." Matteo followed his son's finger. At first, he saw nothing. Then his eyes adjusted, and he spotted her, a young woman, maybe 24 or 25, sitting on the ground with her back against the brick wall. She wore a thin jacket, no hat, no gloves. In her arms, she held a bundle wrapped in what looked like a faded beach towel. The bundle was moving.
"She's cold, Daddy."
"The baby's shaking." Matteo felt that familiar tightening in his chest. The one that told him to walk away, mind his own business, protect his son from the world's ugliness. But Leo was already unbuckling his seatbelt. "Leo, sit down." "But, Daddy." "I'll check. You stay here where it's warm." Matteo closed the door and walked toward the woman. As he got closer, he could see she was younger than he'd thought. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her face, pale and exhausted, turned toward him with startled, wary eyes. Green eyes. The kind that had seen too much too fast. The baby in her arms couldn't have been more than 3 months old. Its tiny face was red from crying, and the thin towel did almost nothing against the cold. "Evening," Matteo said, keeping his distance, keeping his voice gentle. "You need help?" The woman pulled the baby closer, protective. "We're fine. It's 32 degrees out here." "I said we're fine." Matteo glanced back at his SUV. Leo had his face pressed against the window again, watching. He turned back to the woman. "Look, I'm not trying to bother you. My son noticed your baby was cold. Let me at least get you something warm to drink." She studied him for a long moment. He could see her calculating, weighing options. Finally, she nodded once, barely perceptible. Matteo walked into the gas station. The clerk, a tired-looking man in his 50s, glanced up from his phone. Matteo grabbed 2 hot chocolates from the machine, a bottle of water, and a package of crackers. He paid and walked back outside. The woman was standing now, swaying slightly, rocking the baby. Up close, Matteo could see her hands were cracked and raw, her fingernails chipped. The baby's crying had quieted to small, pitiful whimpers. "Here," he handed her the hot chocolate and crackers. She took them with one hand, balancing the baby with the other. "Thank you. What's your name?" She hesitated. "Clara." "I'm Matteo."
"That's my son Leo in the car." He paused.
"Clara, when's the last time you ate a real meal?" "I'm managing." "And where are you managing to?" "There's nothing but highway for 15 miles in either direction." Clara's jaw tightened. "I appreciate the drink, but... Mommy..." The word came out as a thin wail from the baby. Clara looked down, her face crumbling for just a second before she composed herself. She whispered something to the child, but the baby kept crying, the sound cutting through the cold night air. Mateo made a decision. The kind of decision Sophia would have made without thinking twice. The kind that drove his security team crazy. "My car's warm. Come sit inside while you drink that. Just for a few minutes." "I don't think." "Look, I get it.
You don't know me.
I could be anyone. But your baby's freezing, and my son won't let me leave until I know you're okay. Just 5 minutes in the warmth. That's all I'm asking." Clara looked at the SUV, then at her baby, then back at Mateo. Something in his face must have convinced her, because she nodded slowly. 5 minutes. Mateo led her to the SUV and opened the back door opposite Leo's side. The warm air rushed out. Clara climbed in carefully, cradling the baby, and Mateo closed the door behind her. He finished pumping gas, returned the nozzle, and got into the driver's seat. Leo was already leaning over from his booster seat.
Hi. I'm Leo.
I'm 6. What's your baby's name? Clara managed a small smile. This is Emma. She's 3 months old. She's really small. Is she okay? She's cold, sweetie. But she'll be okay now. Mateo watched in the rearview mirror as Clara held the hot chocolate in one hand, the steam rising around her face. She wasn't drinking it. She was using it to warm her hands. Go ahead and drink it, he said quietly. I can get you another one to hold.
Clara met his eyes in the mirror.
For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she lifted the cup to her lips and drank, her eyes closing briefly. Where are you headed? Mateo asked.
North.
Maybe. Clara didn't answer. She just looked down at Emma, who had finally stopped crying and was making small sucking motions with her mouth, searching for food that wasn't there. Mateo felt Leo's small hand on his shoulder. Daddy, can they come home with us? Just for tonight? Emma needs to be warm. Leo. Please? Grandma always says we should help people. That's what Mommy would do. The words hit Mateo like a punch. Because Leo was right. Sophia would have already had Clara and Emma in the car, would already be planning which room they'd stay in, would already be calling ahead to Maria the housekeeper to prepare food. Mateo looked at Clara in the mirror again. She was staring at him, and he could see she'd heard what Leo said. Could see she understood exactly who Mateo was now. The way his clothes fit too well, the way the SUV was too expensive, the way he carried himself. She knew. In this part of New Jersey, everyone knew the Ricci name. I can't accept, Clara started. You're not accepting charity, Mateo interrupted. You're accepting hospitality. There's a difference. One night, warm bed, hot food. Tomorrow you can go wherever you need to go. But tonight, that baby needs warmth, and you need rest. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back hard. Why would you do this? Mateo started the engine. Because my son asked me to. And because he's right. He pulled out of the gas station and onto the empty highway. In the mirror, he watched Clara finally let herself relax back against the seat, Emma bundled against her chest. Leo was chattering about his dinosaur collection, about his room, about how Maria made the best pancakes in the whole world. Mateo drove north toward his estate, toward the life he'd built with walls and gates and men with guns, and for the first time in 2 years, he felt like Sophia might be sitting beside him, nodding her approval. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would unravel secrets, attract danger, and change all of their lives forever. The drive home took 20 minutes. Clara didn't speak again, but Mateo could see her watching the road signs, memorizing the route. Smart. Cautious. He respected that. When they pulled through the iron gates of the Ricci estate, Clara sat up straighter, her eyes widening at the sprawling villa lit up against the night sky. Welcome home, Leo said happily. Don't worry. It's really nice inside. Mateo parked and turned off the engine. Through the front door, he could see Maria already waiting, alerted by the security team's call ahead. The housekeeper's face showed no surprise. She'd worked for the Ricci family for 30 years and had learned not to question anything. Ready? Mateo asked, looking back at Clara. She clutched Emma tighter. Then slowly she nodded. They'd just crossed a threshold that none of them could uncross. The gas station encounter was over. Now the real story was about to begin. Maria stood in the foyer, her gray hair pinned back neatly, her hands folded in front of her black dress. She was 62 years old and had seen Mateo bring home many unexpected things over the years. Wounded associates, frightened witnesses, once even a stray dog Leo had befriended. But never a homeless girl with a baby. Her face remained neutral as Mateo guided Clara inside. "Maria, we have guests for the night. Can you prepare the blue room?" "Of course, Mr. Ricci." Maria's eyes softened when she saw Emma. "The baby will need bottles, yes? I'll warm some milk." Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't have money to pay." "Nobody's asking you to pay," Maria said firmly but kindly. "Come, let's get you both comfortable." Leo grabbed Clara's free hand. "I'll show you. The blue room has a big bed and a bathroom with a tub and everything." Mateo watched them disappear up the stairs, Leo chattering excitedly, Maria following with practiced efficiency, Clara moving like someone in a dream who might wake up any second on that cold gas station ground. He pulled out his phone and texted his head of security. Background check. Clara, early 20s, blonde, has infant. Discreet. Nothing alarming so far, but verify. Then he walked to his office, poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, and sat in the leather chair that still smelled faintly of his father's cigars. He shouldn't have brought them here. His world had rules, and one of them was keep civilians far away, especially ones with children. But Leo's happy voice echoed down the hallway, and Mateo closed his eyes. His son hadn't sounded that animated in months. 20 minutes later, Maria knocked on his office door. "They're settled. The baby is fed and sleeping. The girl is in the shower." "Thank you, Maria." The housekeeper hesitated. "She cried when I gave her the towels." "Not sad crying. Grateful crying." Mateo nodded. Maria left, and he sat alone with his whiskey until he heard soft footsteps in the hallway. He found Clara standing at the top of the stairs, wearing one of Sophia's old robes that Maria must have found. Her hair was damp, her face scrubbed clean. She looked even younger now, fragile and uncertain. "Leo wanted to say goodnight to you," Mateo said. "His room is the 3rd door on the left." Clara nodded and disappeared down the hallway. Mateo heard Leo's excited voice, then laughter. Real laughter. He couldn't remember the last time he'd heard that sound in this house. When Clara emerged 10 minutes later, she found Mateo in the kitchen. He'd made tea without really thinking about it, something Sophia used to do for late-night guests. "Sit," he said, pushing a cup toward her. "You should eat something." "I already ate. Maria made me a sandwich and soup and..." Clara's voice cracked. "I don't understand why you're doing this." Mateo leaned against the counter, studying her. "You got a problem with kindness? I have a problem with debt. With owing people. You don't owe me anything." Clara wrapped her hands around the teacup. "Everyone wants something. That's how the world works." "Maybe. But tonight, all I want is for you and your daughter to sleep somewhere warm. That's it." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Clara spoke, her voice low. "I had an apartment. 6 months ago, I had a job, savings plans. I was going to be a dental hygienist. I was 3 months from graduating." Mateo didn't interrupt. He just listened. "Then I got pregnant. The father," she laughed bitterly. "He was gone before I even told him. My parents kicked me out. Said I was a disgrace. I tried to keep working, keep going to school, but then Emma came early. 5 weeks early. She had breathing problems. They kept her in the NICU for 2 weeks." Clara's hands trembled around the cup. The bills came. $23,000. My insurance covered some, but not enough. I had to drop out of school. I worked double shifts at a diner until I literally couldn't stand anymore. Then I had Emma, and the medical bills buried me. I couldn't pay rent, couldn't afford childcare, to work. The landlord evicted us 3 weeks ago. Where have you been staying? A shelter for a while. But they have rules. You have to be out by 9 a.m., back by 6 p.m. I couldn't job hunt with the baby. Couldn't leave her. So I just
Left.
started walking. Thought maybe I'd reach my aunt's place in Pennsylvania, but that's 200 miles away. She looked up at him, her green eyes fierce despite the exhaustion. I'm not looking for a handout. I just needed one warm night, so Emma wouldn't get sick. Tomorrow, I'll figure something out. Mateo set his own cup down. That landlord who evicted you. What's his name?
Why?
Just curious. Clara studied him, and he could see her making connections, understanding exactly what kind of man she was talking to. His name is Ray Kowalski. But please don't. I don't want trouble. No trouble, Mateo said evenly. But a man who kicks a woman and baby onto the street in November deserves to know what people think of him. I owed him rent, and he owed you humanity. Clara's eyes filled with tears again. She blinked them back angrily. I'm not weak. I'm not some charity case. I can see that. You survived 3 weeks on the street with an infant. Most people couldn't last 3 days. Mateo moved to the sink, rinsing his cup. The blue room is yours for a few days.
Rest. Eat. Get warm.
Let Emma be safe. That's not charity. That's basic human decency. And then what? Then we figure out what comes next. Clara stood up slowly. I should check on Emma. Maria put a baby monitor in the room. She's probably already asleep.
Still.
I need to see her. Mateo nodded. As Clara reached the kitchen doorway, she turned back. Thank you for stopping. Most people just drove past me tonight. My son has a good heart. I'm just trying to live up to it. Clara smiled, small but genuine, and disappeared upstairs. Mateo stood alone in the kitchen, thinking about medical bills and cruel landlords and a young woman brave enough to walk 200 miles for her child. He thought about Sophia, who would have done exactly what he'd done tonight. Maybe that's why Leo had insisted. Maybe his son remembered, even at 6 years old, what his mother would have wanted. He pulled out his phone and typed another message to his security chief, also run Ray Kowalski. Landlord in the area. I want everything. Then he climbed the stairs to his own bedroom, passing the blue room where he could hear Clara humming softly to Emma. The house felt different. Warmer somehow. He didn't know yet about the hospital bracelet. Didn't know about the connection that stretched back months before tonight. Didn't know that saving Clara would draw danger to his doorstep. All he knew was that his son was happy, and in this house of ghosts and memories, that was enough. For now. Morning sunlight poured through the villa's tall windows, turning everything golden. Mateo was already awake. He rarely slept past 6 a.m. and stood in his home gym, finishing his last set of push-ups when he heard small footsteps padding down the hallway. Leo appeared in the doorway, still in his dinosaur pajamas. Is Clara still here? I think so. Why don't you get dressed, and we'll find out. Leo disappeared in a flash of excitement. Mateo showered, dressed in dark jeans and a simple black sweater, and headed downstairs. The smell of coffee and something sweet greeted him. In the kitchen, Maria was at the stove making pancakes. Clara sat at the breakfast table, Emma cradled in one arm while she awkwardly tried to butter toast with the other hand. She changed back into her own clothes, worn jeans and a faded blue sweater that had definitely seen better days, but her hair was brushed and her face looked rested, different from the hollow-eyed girl at the gas station.
Good morning, Mateo said.
Clara looked up startled. Morning. I hope it's okay that I came down. Leo insisted, and Maria said, It's fine. You're a guest. He poured himself coffee. How'd you sleep? Like the dead. Clara's cheeks flushed. Sorry, that's a weird thing to say. It's honest. That's better. Leo thundered into the kitchen, freshly dressed, but with his shirt on backwards. He climbed into the chair next to Clara. Can I hold Emma? Maybe after breakfast, sweetie. She just ate. Maria brought over a plate stacked with pancakes and set it in the center of the table. Eat, all of you. Growing boys and new mothers need food. As Clara shifted Emma to reach for a pancake, Maria's hand suddenly froze midair, holding the syrup bottle. She was staring at Emma's tiny wrist. "Maria?" Mateo asked. "Something wrong?" The housekeeper set down the syrup slowly and moved closer to Clara. "May I see the baby's wrist?" Just for a moment. Clara looked confused but tilted Emma slightly so Maria could see. There, on the infant's impossibly small wrist, was a hospital identification bracelet, the kind they put on newborns that parents often keep as mementos. This one was worn and slightly faded, but still legible. Maria's face went pale. She looked at Clara, then at Mateo, then back at the bracelet. "What is it?" Mateo's voice sharpened. Maria spoke carefully, as if choosing each word. "Mr. Ricci, this bracelet. It's from St. Catherine's Medical Center. Maternity ward." "Okay," Clara said. "That's where Emma was born. They kept her in the NICU because she came early." Maria's hand trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone and scrolled through something. She showed the screen to Mateo. It was a photograph from 8 months ago, Mateo shaking hands with a hospital administrator, standing beside a large ceremonial check. Behind them was a sign, St. Catherine's Medical Center, New Maternal Wing, made possible by anonymous donor. "You funded the new wing," Maria said quietly. "The one with the upgraded NICU." Mateo remembered. It had been one of Sophia's final wishes, written in a letter he'd found after she died. She wanted their money to help mothers and babies, especially those who couldn't afford care. He'd donated $2 million anonymously through a foundation, specifically requesting that no one know the Ricci family was behind it. Clara was looking between them, confused. "I don't understand." Maria sat down heavily in a chair. "When did you say Emma was born?" "July 15th. She came 5 weeks early. They said the NICU saved her life. She couldn't breathe right at first," Clara's voice caught. "I remember feeling so grateful for that place, for those machines and doctors, even though I knew I could never afford to pay for it all." "You got a bill, though," Mateo said slowly, pieces clicking together in his mind. $23,000. Well, that's what it was after insurance. The social worker said it should have been over 100,000, but there was some kind of charitable assistance fund that covered most of it. "An anonymous donation," she said. "I tried to find out who to thank, but they wouldn't tell me." The room went silent except for Emma's small cooing sounds. Leo looked at his father. "Daddy, what's wrong? Why does everyone look weird?" Mateo stared at the tiny bracelet on Emma's wrist. At Clara's face, confused, cautious. He thought about that night 8 months ago when he'd signed the check, sitting in his office, reading Sophia's letter for the 100th time. "Help the mothers who have no one else, Mateo. Help the babies who need a miracle." "Clara," he said slowly, "what hospital charity covered your bills? Do you remember the name?" She thought for a moment. "Something Foundation." The social worker wrote it down. "Hope Springs Foundation." Yes, that was it. Maria made a small sound. That was the foundation Mateo had created in Sophia's name. The one nobody outside his legal team knew about. "That's impossible," Clara whispered, looking at Mateo's face. "You? You paid for Emma's care?" "I didn't know it was you specifically. The fund covers anyone at St. Catherine's who qualifies."
"But yes."
"That was my money." Clara stood up, so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Emma startled in her arms, but didn't cry. "You saved my daughter's life months ago, and then you saved us again last night?"
Her voice was rising.
"What are the odds of that? What kind of coincidence?" "It's not coincidence," Maria interrupted gently. "In my experience, these things happen for a reason." Mateo couldn't take his eyes off the bracelet. He'd signed that check on February 10th, Sophia's birthday. He'd driven to the hospital himself to meet with the administrators to ensure the money went exactly where it was needed. He'd walked through the new NICU, seeing tiny babies in incubators, mothers crying with relief and exhaustion. Emma had been one of those babies. Clara had been one of those mothers. And he'd never known. "I need air," Clara said suddenly. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "This is too much." I don't understand what this means. It means, Mateo said quietly, standing up, that you were supposed to end up at that gas station last night. That Leo was supposed to see you. That you were supposed to come here. I don't believe in fate. Neither did I. He looked at his son, who was watching with wide, solemn eyes. But I'm starting to. Clara sank back into her chair, holding Emma close. So, I already owed you everything before last night. Before any of this. You don't owe me anything. That donation wasn't about debt. It was about doing what's right. But twice? You saved us twice. Maria reached over and squeezed Clara's hand. Maybe the universe wanted to make sure Mr. Ricci didn't miss the message this time. Leo tugged on his father's sleeve. What message? Mateo looked at his son, at Clara and Emma, at Maria's knowing smile. He thought about Sophia's letter, about signing that check, about pulling into a gas station at exactly midnight on exactly the night when Clara needed help most. That some people come into our lives for a reason, he said finally. And we're supposed to pay attention. Clara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked at Emma's hospital bracelet, then at Mateo. Thank you. For everything. For her life. And for ours. Don't thank me yet, Mateo said, trying to lighten the heavy moment. You haven't tasted Maria's pancakes. They're terrible. They are not. Leo protested, giggling. Even Clara laughed, shaky but real. But as they sat down to breakfast, as conversation slowly resumed, Mateo couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a coincidence or fate bringing Clara to him. It felt like a second chance. After breakfast, Mateo found Clara in the blue room, packing Emma's few belongings into a plastic grocery bag. She looked up when he knocked on the doorframe. Thank you for the meal and the bed. We should probably get going. Where? Clara paused. I'll figure something out. Maybe there's a shelter in the next town or... Stay. I can't keep imposing. It's not imposing. Mateo leaned against the doorframe, choosing his words carefully. Look, you need time to figure things out. Get your strength back. Emma needs stability for a few days. Stay here. A week, maybe 2. Give yourself a chance to breathe. Clara's hands tightened on the bag. Why would you do that? Because I can. Because it's the right thing to do, he paused. And because my son hasn't smiled this much since his mother died. If I send you away, I'll never hear the end of it. As if on cue, Leo appeared behind Mateo, squeezing past his father's legs. Clara, you have to see my room. And the garden. Maria grows tomatoes and everything. And there's a fountain with fish. Leo, maybe Clara wants to rest. No, it's okay, Clara said softly, looking at the boy's eager face. I'd love to see your room. Leo grabbed her free hand and pulled her into the hallway. Mateo followed at a distance, watching his son transform into an enthusiastic tour guide. This is the boring hallway with all the boring paintings, Leo narrated, walking backwards. But this one is my great-great-grandpa. He had a mustache like a walrus. And this is Daddy's office where nobody's allowed except for important business stuff. And this is the library, but the books are old and smell weird. Clara laughed, a real, genuine laugh that echoed through the hallway. Mateo felt something tighten in his chest. Leo's room was an explosion of toys, books, and dinosaur posters. He immediately began pulling things out to show Clara. This is my T-Rex. And this is a Triceratops. And I have a Stegosaurus somewhere, but I lost him. Maybe he's extinct again. Clara sat on the edge of Leo's bed, adjusting Emma in her arms. These are amazing. Do you know all their names? All of them. Daddy took me to the Natural History Museum, and we saw the real bones. They're huge, like bigger than our house. Emma made a small gurgling sound, and Leo's attention immediately shifted. Can I touch her hand? Is that okay? Very gently, Clara said. Leo reached out with one finger and touched Emma's tiny palm. Her fingers instinctively wrapped around his, and Leo's entire face lit up. She's holding me. Daddy, look, she's holding me. Mateo smiled from the doorway. I see that, buddy. She's so small. Was I this small? Smaller, actually. You were born early, too. Leo looked at Emma with newfound respect. We're the same then. Early birds, he glanced at Clara. Can I show her the garden? I'll be really careful. Clara looked uncertain, but Maria appeared in the hallway. I'll go with them. Some fresh air would do everyone good. And I need to cut herbs for lunch anyway. 20 minutes later, Matteo stood at his office window, watching the scene below in the garden. Leo was pushing Emma in an old baby carriage that Maria must have found in the attic, probably from when Leo himself was an infant. Clara walked beside him, her hand resting protectively on the carriage handle. Leo kept stopping to show Emma flowers, talking to her even though she couldn't understand a word. He's happy, Maria said, appearing beside Matteo with a cup of coffee she'd brought him. Really happy. Not pretend happy. I see that. The house feels different, warmer. Matteo didn't respond, but he knew she was right. For 2 years, the villa had felt like a mausoleum, beautiful but cold, full of expensive things and empty spaces. Now he could hear Leo's laughter drifting through the windows, could smell something baking in the kitchen, could feel life moving through the rooms again. She's good with him, Maria continued. Patient.
Kind.
She listens when he talks, really listens. Not many adults do that with children. Don't get attached, Maria. Too late. I made her a doctor's appointment for tomorrow. She needs a checkup and so does the baby. And I ordered clothes online. They'll arrive tonight. That sweater she's wearing has holes in it. Matteo raised an eyebrow. I didn't authorize any of that. You also didn't say no. Maria's eyes twinkled. Besides, Mrs. Ricci would have done it already. I'm just following her example. She left before Matteo could respond, and he continued watching the garden. Clara had picked a flower and was letting Leo give it to Emma, guiding his small hand. The baby's face scrunched up and Clara laughed, saying something that made Leo giggle. Later that afternoon, Matteo found Clara in the kitchen. She'd rolled up her sleeves and was helping Maria prepare vegetables for dinner, moving with the easy competence of someone who'd worked in kitchens before. You don't have to work, Matteo said. Clara looked up, her hands wet from washing lettuce. I need to do something. I can't just sit around. It makes me crazy. I understand that. She hesitated, then said, Leo showed me the whole house. It's beautiful. Your wife, she had good taste. She did. He talks about her a lot. About how she used to make cookies and read him stories and sing off-key. Matteo smiled despite himself. Sophia couldn't carry a tune to save her life. But she sang anyway. He misses her. Every day. Clara dried her hands on a towel. I lost my mom too, in a way. She's alive, but she cut me off completely when she found out I was pregnant. Said I was ruining my life and embarrassing the family, her voice hardened. So, I understand what it's like when someone who's supposed to love you just disappears. I'm sorry. Don't be. I have Emma now. She's all the family I need. But Matteo heard the loneliness under her words. Saw it in the way she watched Leo play with Emma, in the way she'd hesitated before accepting help, in the way she kept herself slightly apart even as she settled in. That evening after dinner, Matteo walked past the living room and stopped. Clara was sitting on the couch with Emma asleep on her chest. Leo had fallen asleep beside her, his head on her shoulder, his small hand resting on Emma's blanket. Clara was humming softly, the same melody he'd heard her hum last night. Something old and sweet and sad. She looked up and saw him watching. Sorry, I should put Leo to bed. Let him sleep a few more minutes. Matteo sat in the chair across from them. That song. What is it? Just something my grandmother used to sing. Before she died, Clara looked down at the 2 sleeping children. Your son is special, you know. Really special. He has this huge heart, and he's not afraid to show it. That's rare, especially for a boy being raised in this world. This world. You know what I mean. Your world. Where men have to be hard and strong and never show weakness. I wanted to stay soft as long as possible, Matteo admitted. The world will try to harden him soon enough. You're doing something right then. Because he's perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the children sleep. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the room in shades of amber and gold. For a moment, it felt almost like a normal family, like something that could be real and permanent. But Matteo knew better. Nothing permanent ever lasted in his world. He just didn't know yet how soon that truth would prove itself. Or how much danger was already heading their way. Day 3 began with Matteo waking to unfamiliar sounds, pots clanging softly in the kitchen, water running, a woman's voice singing quietly. For a disoriented moment, he thought it was Sophia. Then reality settled back in, and he remembered.
Clara.
He found her in the kitchen at 7 a.m., Emma sleeping in a makeshift nest of cushions on the breakfast nook bench, while Clara stood at the stove making scrambled eggs. She'd found one of Maria's aprons and tied it around her waist. "Morning," she said, not looking up. "Hope you don't mind. I couldn't sleep, and Maria's been doing so much. Figured I'd help. Maria's not here yet. She doesn't arrive until 8-inch. I know. That's why I wanted to surprise her." Clara plated the eggs alongside toast and fresh fruit. "There's coffee, too. I found everything in the pantry." Matteo poured himself a cup and sat at the counter, watching her work. She moved efficiently, comfortably, like someone who'd spent years in kitchens. When Maria arrived 20 minutes later, she stopped in the doorway, surprised to find breakfast already made and the kitchen spotless. "You didn't have to do this," Maria said. "I wanted to," Clara smiled. "You've been so kind. It's the least I could do." Later that morning, Matteo was in his office on a conference call when he glanced out the window and saw Clara in the garden with Leo. They were collecting fallen leaves, filling a basket together. Leo was explaining something enthusiastically, probably another dinosaur fact, and Clara was nodding along, asking questions, genuinely engaged. Emma was in a carrier strapped to Clara's chest, her tiny head bobbing with each movement. When the call ended, Matteo found them making leaf crowns at the patio table. "Daddy, look, I'm a king." Leo had leaves arranged in a circle on his head, barely staying put. "Very regal," Matteo said. Clara adjusted Emma's blanket. "He's teaching me about photosynthesis. Apparently, leaves are very important to dinosaurs." "They ate them," Leo explained. "The plant eaters, I mean, not the T-Rex. He ate other dinosaurs." "Terrifying," Clara said solemnly, making Leo giggle. Matteo felt it again, that tightness in his chest, the warmth spreading through spaces that had been cold for too long. In the afternoon, Maria discovered Clara in the laundry room, folding clothes. "Clara, no. These are my jobs," Maria protested. "Then let me help."
Please.
"I'm not good at sitting still." Clara folded one of Leo's small shirts with practiced precision. "I worked at a laundromat during high school. This is actually kind of therapeutic." Maria relented, and they worked side by side, chatting about nothing and everything. Matteo passed by once and heard Clara laughing at something Maria said, the sound light and unguarded. That evening, Matteo was reviewing security reports in his office when he heard an odd noise, clanking pipes. He followed the sound to the guest bathroom down the hall and found Clara on her back under the sink, a wrench in her hand, her sleeves rolled up past her elbows. "What are you doing?" Clara's voice echoed from under the cabinet. "There was a leak. Just tightening the connection. Should be there." She slid out, her face flushed with accomplishment. "Fixed. You know plumbing." "My dad was a contractor. He taught me basic repairs before he decided I was a disappointment," she said it matter-of-factly, without bitterness. "Anyway, I couldn't let it drip all night. Water damage gets expensive." Matteo helped her up. Their hands touched briefly, and Clara pulled back quickly, wiping her palms on her jeans. "Sorry, I should have asked first. This is your house, and I just assumed." "It's fine. Thank you." He looked at the now silent pipes. "That's been dripping for a month. I kept meaning to call someone." Well, now you don't have to, she picked up the wrench. I should put this back in the garage. As she walked past him, Mateo caught the scent of baby powder and something floral, probably Maria's soap. He stood alone in the bathroom, looking at the fixed pipe, and felt something shift inside him. This stranger, this woman who'd had every reason to be broken and bitter, was fixing things in his house. Making breakfast, folding laundry, filling empty spaces with laughter and warmth. That night, Mateo couldn't sleep. He wandered downstairs around midnight and found Clara in the kitchen, heating a bottle for Emma. She startled when she saw him. Sorry, I tried to be quiet. You were. I just don't sleep much, he grabbed a glass of water. How's she doing?
Good.
She's gaining weight. Sleeping a little longer between feedings, Clara tested the bottle temperature on her wrist. Your home is healing her. Healing us both. They stood in the dim kitchen, the only light coming from the stove hood. Emma made small hungry sounds from the living room, where Clara had left her. I should get back to her, Clara said. But she paused at the doorway. Mateo? Can I ask you something? Sure. Why haven't you asked me anything? About Emma's father, about my family, about any of it? Most people are full of questions and judgment. Mateo set down his glass. Your past is yours. What matters is that you're here now, and you're a good mother doing your best in impossible circumstances. The rest isn't my business. Clara's eyes glistened. Thank you for that. After she left, Mateo sat at the kitchen table in the dark. He thought about Sophia, about how she'd always seen the best in people, always believed in second chances. He thought about Leo's happiness, about how the house felt alive again. He thought about Clara's laugh, the way she hummed while working, the way she fixed broken things without being asked. His phone buzzed. A text from his security chief. Background clear. No red flags. Girls clean. Former landlord though, Ray Kowalski. Different story. Connected to the Castellano family.
Small debts.
Shady dealings. Mateo stared at the message. The Castellanos were a rival family, small-time but ambitious, always looking for leverage. Ray Kowalski, knowing Clara's location, shouldn't matter. The man had no reason to care about a girl he'd evicted. But something nagged at Mateo. A feeling he'd learned long ago never to ignore. He typed back, keep monitoring Kowalski. I want to know everywhere he goes and everyone he talks to. Then he went upstairs and checked on Leo, who was sleeping peacefully, with his dinosaur clutched to his chest. He walked past the blue room and heard Clara humming that same melody, soothing Emma back to sleep. The house was warm,
Happy.
full of life. Mateo stood in the hallway, letting himself feel it, the connection growing between them all, the family they were accidentally becoming. He should have known it couldn't last. He should have known that warmth always attracted predators looking for something to destroy. But in that moment, listening to Clara's gentle humming, watching his son sleep peacefully, feeling something close to contentment for the first time in 2 years, Mateo let himself hope. Just for a moment. It was a mistake he'd soon regret. Day 4 arrived with deceptive normalcy. Clara made pancakes with Leo, who insisted on adding chocolate chips to spell out Emma's name. Maria worked in the garden. Mateo took calls in his office, handling the legitimate business fronts that kept his other operations invisible. At 2:30 p.m., the front gate intercom buzzed. Marco, the head guard, answered from the security house. Ricci residence. Yeah, hi, the voice was male, nasal, impatient. I'm looking for Clara Bennett. I know she's in there. Marco's hand moved to the alert button. No one by that name here. You have the wrong address. Don't give me that. I tracked her phone signal to this area 3 days ago before it went dead. This is the only estate on this road. She owes me money, and I want to talk to her. Sir, you need to leave the property. Listen, I'm her landlord, Ray Kowalski. She skipped out on 2 months' rent, $1,500. I got rights to collect. Marco could see the man through the gate camera, mid-40s, thinning hair, cheap leather jacket, standing next to a beat-up Ford with rust spots. He looked exactly like what he was, a small-time operator who'd stumbled onto something bigger than he understood. This is private property. Leave now or I'll call the police. Ray's face twisted with anger. Private property? Yeah, I bet it is. You tell Clara she can't hide behind whoever she's shacked up with. She owes me, and I'll get my money one way or another. Marco ended the intercom call and immediately phoned Matteo, who arrived at the security house within 2 minutes. Show me the footage. Marco replayed the interaction. Matteo watched Ray's face, his body language, the way he'd said, whoever she's shacked up with that sneering implication. He knows she's here, Matteo said quietly. Want me to have the boys pay him a visit? Explain things properly?
No.
Not yet. Run his plates. Follow him. I want to know where he goes and who he talks to. Already on it, boss. But they were 12 minutes too late. Ray Kowalski sat in his car half a mile down the road, his hands shaking with rage and fear. $1,500 was nothing to whoever lived in that fortress. He'd seen the gates, the cameras, the guardhouse. But $1,500 was everything to Ray. He had debts. Serious debts. The kind that came with consequences if you didn't pay. Specifically, debts to a man named Frankie Castellano. Ray pulled out his phone and stared at it. He'd been stupid to come here, stupid to think he could just collect from Clara like this was a normal situation. But seeing those gates, recognizing the setup that was a mob house, had to be. And if Clara was inside.
His phone rang.
Speak of the devil. Ray, Frankie's voice was smooth, dangerous. You got my money? Not yet, but Frankie, listen, I got something better. Information. I don't need information. I need $3,000 by Friday. This is worth more than $3 grand. Trust me, Ray licked his lips. You know the Ricci family? Silence. Then, keep talking. That girl I evicted, the one with the baby? I just found her. She's at the Ricci estate. Inside. Living there. More silence. Ray could practically hear Frankie's mind working. You're sure it's the Ricci place? I'm sitting outside it right now. Big gates, armed guards, the whole setup. It's on Hillcrest Road. Only estate up here. Has to be them. And the girl's definitely inside. The guard didn't deny it. Got all defensive. She's there. Frankie's voice changed, became almost friendly. Ray, you just became useful. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to send me the exact address. Then you're going to forget this conversation ever happened. You do that, and we're square. Your debt's cleared. Really? Just like that? Just like that.
But Ray?
If you're lying to me, if this is some bullshit story to buy time, you won't like what happens next. I'm not lying. I swear.
Good.
Send me that address. Ray hung up and immediately texted the location. His hands were still shaking, but now with relief. Debt cleared. He didn't have to know why Frankie cared about some homeless girl at the Ricci place. Didn't want to know. He started his car and drove away, never noticing the black SUV that fell into place 3 cars behind him. Inside the Ricci villa, Clara was in the living room with Leo, reading him a story about knights and dragons. Emma slept in her carrier nearby. Clara had no idea that her former landlord had been at the gate. Had no idea that her location had just been sold. Matteo stood at his office window, watching them. Something felt wrong. The air had changed somehow, the way it did before storms, before violence, before everything went sideways. His phone buzzed. Marco, Kowalski made a call immediately after leaving. Couldn't hear it, but body language was animated. He's heading east toward Newark. Matteo texted back, stay on him. Audio surveillance if you can get close enough. Another message came through, this time from Vincent, his information broker. Boss, picked up chatter. Castellano crew, asking questions about your property. Might be nothing but thought you should know. Matteo's jaw tightened. The Castellanos. Frankie Castellano ran a small operation, drugs, gambling, some enforcement work. Not big enough to challenge Matteo directly, but ambitious. Stupid ambitious. He walked downstairs and found Maria in the kitchen. Where's Clara? Living room with Leo.
Why?
What's wrong? Maybe nothing. Keep them inside for the rest of the day. Maria's expression sharpened. She'd worked for the Ricci family long enough to understand tone. Should I be worried? Just cautious. Matteo went to the living room. Clara looked up from the book, her smile fading when she saw his face. Everything okay? Clara, I need you to think carefully. Your landlord, Ray Kowalski. Who does he know? Who does he associate with? Her face went pale.
Why?
What happened? Just answer the question. I don't know. I only met him to pay rent. But she hesitated. There were always these guys hanging around his building. Rough looking. One time I saw him arguing with someone, and he looked scared. Really scared. The guy mentioned something about money Ray owed. Did you catch a name? Frankie something? I only heard it once. Matteo's worst suspicion confirmed. Frankie Castellano. I don't know who that is. That's good. Keep it that way. He looked at Leo, who was watching with worried eyes. Stay inside today, okay? Both of you. Just as a precaution. Matteo, please tell me what's happening. He wanted to lie, to tell her everything was fine. But Clara deserved the truth. Your landlord was at the gate an hour ago. My guard sent him away, but he knows you're here. And if he's connected to Frankie Castellano, that information might not stay private. Clara stood up, her face stricken. I brought this here. I brought danger to your home.
No.
He brought danger. There's a difference. I should leave. Take Emma and... You're not going anywhere. You're safer here than out there. He moved closer, his voice firm. This is my world, Clara. I know how to handle it. Just trust me. She searched his face, then nodded slowly. Okay. Okay, he looked at Leo. Hey, buddy. How about you and Clara watch a movie? Something with dinosaurs. Can Emma watch too even though she can't see very good yet? She can definitely watch. As Matteo left to make calls, to arrange security, to prepare for whatever was coming, he didn't see the unmarked sedan that had parked on the ridge overlooking his property. Didn't see the man with binoculars, watching. Didn't know that the predators had already found their target. The warmth he'd felt these past days was about to be tested. And the price for saving Clara was about to come due. Day 5 began with fog rolling in from the east, turning the morning gray and oppressive. Matteo was in his office at dawn, reviewing security reports from the night shift, when Marco called. Boss, we got activity. What kind? Unmarked sedan, dark blue Chevy, parked on Ridgewood Avenue for 3 hours last night. Different car, black Honda, showed up at 5 a.m. They're watching the property. Matteo's blood went cold. Current location? The Honda's still there. Driver's just sitting. I sent Tony to get a closer look. Guy's got binoculars and a camera with a telephoto lens. Plates. Registered to a rental company in Newark. Paid cash, fake ID, professional setup. Where's the Chevy now?
Gone.
Lost it around 3 a.m. Matteo stood and walked to the window. The estate looked peaceful in the fog. The garden, the fountain, the driveway where Leo's bike lay on its side from yesterday. But he knew better. Peace was an illusion. Violence was always waiting just beyond the walls. Double the perimeter guards. I want eyes on every approach. And Marco? Arm up. All of you. Copy that. At breakfast, Clara noticed immediately that something was wrong. There were more guards visible through the windows. Maria moved through the kitchen with tight efficiency, her usual warmth replaced by tension. What's happening? Clara asked quietly, Emma sleeping against her shoulder. Matteo set down his coffee. Just increased security. Routine. That's not routine. I can see it on everyone's faces. Leo looked between them, his dinosaur figurines forgotten.
Daddy.
Everything's fine, buddy. Eat your pancakes. But at 9:30, Marco called again. Boss, we got a drone. Small quadcopter, flying a grid pattern over the property. Can you take it down? Already did. Shotgun blast from the roof. Things in pieces in the south garden. Want me to? Bring me the wreckage. I want to know what it was recording. Mateo hung up and found Clara standing in the doorway. She'd heard everything. A drone? Her voice trembled. They're watching us? Watching Leo. Clara. This is my fault. Oh, God, this is because of me. Let's talk in my office. She followed him, moving like someone walking to an execution. Mateo closed the door and gestured to the chair across from his desk. Clara sat, clutching Emma so tightly, the baby squirmed. Tell me about Ray Kowalski, Mateo said, his voice gentle but firm. Everything you know. I already told you. Tell me again. Every detail, no matter how small. Clara's eyes filled with tears. He was my landlord for 8 months. Collected rent on the first. Was always hanging around the building, smoking, talking on his phone.
He seemed nervous all the time.
Jumpy. The men you saw him with described them. There was one guy who came around a lot. Slicked back hair, expensive suit, drove a Mercedes. Ray acted different around him.
Scared.
Called him Mr. Castellano. Frankie. I don't know his first name. But once I heard him tell Ray that time was running out, that patience had limits. Ray was sweating, practically begging for more time. Mateo leaned back in his chair. When Ray evicted you, did he seem angrier than the situation warranted?
Clara thought about it.
Yes, actually. He was furious, screaming about how I'd ruined everything, how he needed that money. I only owed $1,500, but he acted like it was 50,000-inch. She wiped her eyes. When I saw him yesterday at the gate, he was here, wasn't he? Yes. And he told someone I was here. We believe so. Clara stood abruptly, pacing. I have to leave. I have to take Emma and go right now. I won't let you and Leo get hurt because of me. Sit down.
No.
You don't understand.
Seat.
Down. Mateo's voice cut through her panic. Clara sank back into the chair, trembling. He softened his tone. You didn't bring this trouble here.
They did.
Ray Kowalski sold information to dangerous people. That's on him. You were just trying to survive. But if you hadn't come here, you'd be on the street with Emma, vulnerable and alone. At least here, you're protected. Here, we can control the situation. Can you? Clara's voice broke. They're flying drones over your house, Mateo. They're watching Leo. What if something happens to him, because of me? I couldn't live with that. Mateo stood and moved around the desk, crouching beside her chair, so they were eye level. Look at me, she did, her green eyes full of terror and guilt. I've dealt with men like the Castellanos my entire life. They're predictable. They make noise, they posture, they probe for weakness. But they won't find any here. You can't promise that. I can. This is my world, Clara. This is what I do. And right now, what I'm doing is keeping you, Emma, and Leo safe. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Clara stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Okay. Good, he stood. Now, I need you to stay inside today. Keep Emma close. If Leo asks questions, tell him we're playing a game, house lockdown adventure, or something. He'll think it's fun. What are you going to do? Figure out what the Castellanos want and how to make them go away. As Clara left his office, Mateo called Marco back. Status. Drone was equipped with a 4K camera. Memory cards intact. I'm pulling the footage now. Also, we ID'd the driver of the Honda. Named Sal Moretti, low-level enforcer for the Castellano crew. He's still there? Yeah, but he knows we made him. He's getting sloppy, checking his phone every 2 minutes. Let him watch. I want them to see our security, to understand what they're walking into if they make a move, Mateo paused. But Marco? I also want to know where Frankie Castellano is right now. Every single place he goes, everyone he talks to. Pull in favors if you need to. On it. Mateo spent the next hour making calls, to contacts in the police department, to information brokers, to allied families who owed him favors. The picture that emerged was troubling. Frankie Castellano had been making moves lately, trying to expand territory, muscling in on operations that weren't his. He was ambitious and reckless, A dangerous combination. And now he thought Clara was leverage. At lunch, Mateo found Leo and Clara in the living room, building a blanket fort while Emma watched from her carrier. Leo had transformed the lockdown into an adventure, just as Mateo had hoped. "We're hiding from the dragon," Leo explained seriously. "This fort has magic protection." "Very important," Mateo agreed. He caught Clara's eye over Leo's head. She gave him a small, grateful smile. But that smile faded when Marco appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Boss, you need to see this."
Now.
Mateo followed him to the security office. On the monitors, Marco pulled up footage from the perimeter cameras. New cars arriving, parking at various points around the estate. 6 different vehicles in the last hour, all keeping distance but clearly coordinating. "They're establishing a surveillance perimeter," Marco said. "This isn't reconnaissance anymore. This is preparation." Mateo's jaw tightened. "They're planning something. Question is what?"
And when?
Mateo stared at the screens, watching the cars, counting heads, assessing threats. The Castellanos were making their move. They thought Clara was a weakness, a way in, a tool they could use. They were about to learn how wrong they were. But first, he had to make sure Leo and Emma stayed safe. Because if the Castellanos were willing to surveil his home in broad daylight, they were willing to escalate. And escalation in his world meant blood. "Lock it down," Mateo said quietly. "Full protocol. Nobody gets in or out without my authorization." "What about the girl?" "Especially the girl. She stays here until this is over." Marco nodded and began issuing orders. Mateo returned to the living room, where Leo and Clara were still playing, innocent and unaware of the predators circling outside. He would protect them, all of them, no matter what it cost. By late afternoon, the fog had thickened into something oppressive. Mateo stood in his office, watching the security feeds with Marco. 8 vehicles now surrounded the property at various distances. The message was clear: "We know where you are and we're not leaving." "They're getting bold," Marco said. "Too bold. Frankie must really want something. He wants leverage." Mateo's mind was racing through scenarios, calculating risks. "He thinks Clara's my weakness. Thinks he can pressure me through her." Is he wrong? Mateo didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Vincent? I need the safe house on Oakmont Road prepared. Full provisions, security team, everything. 1 hour." When he hung up, Marco was staring at him. "You're moving them." "I'm moving everyone. Clara, Emma, and Leo. They stay there until this is finished. The boy won't like leaving his home. The boy will be alive. That's what matters." 20 minutes later, Mateo found Clara in the blue room, folding Emma's clothes with shaking hands. She looked up when he entered, her face pale. "We need to leave, don't we?"
Yes.
"I have a safe house, smaller than this, but secure. You, Emma, and Leo will stay there for a few days." "And you?" "I'll be handling things here." Clara's hand stilled on the tiny onesie she was folding. "They want me. If I just left, went far away, this would all be over." "No, it wouldn't. They'd find you, and you'd have no protection." Mateo moved closer. "Clara, listen to me. You're not bait, and you're not a bargaining chip. You're under my protection now. That means something in this world. It means you're risking everything for someone you barely know. It means I'm doing what's right. There's a difference." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. "I'm so scared. Not for me. I don't care what happens to me. But Emma and Leo. If something happened to Leo because of me, Mateo, I couldn't." "Nothing will happen to Leo. I promise you that." His voice was steel. "Pack what you need. We leave in 15 minutes. Clara wiped her eyes and nodded. As Mateo turned to leave, she called out, "Thank you for protecting us, for not just throwing us out." That was never an option. He found Leo in his room, building an elaborate dinosaur scene with blocks. "Hey, buddy, we're going on an adventure." Leo looked up, excited. "Really? Where?" "To a special house. like a secret hideout. You, me, Clara, and Emma. Is it because of the bad guys? Matteo knelt down to Leo's level. He'd promised himself after Sophia died that he'd never lie to his son.
Yes.
Some people are being difficult, so we're going somewhere safe while I fix things. But it'll be fun. The house has a big TV, video games, and Maria's coming too to make your favorite foods. Will the bad guys find us?
No.
I won't let them. I promise. He pulled Leo into a hug, breathing in his son's shampoo smell, feeling the fierce protectiveness that had defined his life since the day Leo was born. You trust me? Always, Daddy. Then let's pack your dinosaurs. 30 minutes later, they were ready. 2 black SUVs sat in the circular driveway, engines running. Marco had assembled a security team, 4 of Matteo's most trusted men, all armed, all experienced. Clara stood near the first vehicle, Emma bundled in a carrier against her chest, looking small and terrified. The route's secure, Marco said quietly to Matteo. We've swept it twice. No tails, no surveillance. The safe house team is already in position. Matteo nodded. He turned to Clara. You'll ride in the first vehicle with Leo and Emma. Maria's with you.
Marco drives.
I'll be right behind you in the second vehicle. You're coming? Relief flooded Clara's face. Of course I'm coming. You think I'd send Leo somewhere I wasn't willing to go? They loaded quickly. Leo chattered excitedly about the adventure, his dinosaur backpack clutched in his lap. Clara sat rigid, her arms wrapped around Emma, watching the gates open. The drive took 45 minutes. Marco took a deliberately circuitous route, doubling back, using side streets, ensuring no one followed. Matteo watched the mirrors constantly, his hand resting on the concealed weapon in his jacket. The safe house was a 2-story colonial in a quiet suburban neighborhood, deliberately ordinary, deliberately forgettable. The kind of place nobody looked at twice. But Matteo knew every window was bulletproof glass, every door reinforced steel, every room covered by cameras. It was a fortress disguised as a family home. Inside, Maria immediately began making the place comfortable, unpacking food, starting dinner. The security team took positions throughout the house and perimeter. Leo explored the living room, finding the video game console and whooping with delight. Clara stood in the kitchen, holding Emma, looking lost. The bedroom upstairs on the right is yours, Matteo said. Leo's is next door to you. Mine's across the hall. You're really staying? I told you, I don't send my son anywhere I won't go. But your estate has a full security team. This is where I need to be right now, he gestured to the windows, where dusk was falling. This house is safe. No one knows about it except my inner circle. You can rest here. Clara looked at him, really looked at him. Not the mafia boss from rumors, not the cold Don, but a father who'd uprooted his own life to keep a stranger's baby safe. Who are you? She asked softly. Really? Someone who knows what it's like to lose people. Someone who won't let it happen again, if I can prevent it. Your wife, Sophia. She died 2 years ago. Car accident, drunk driver. Wrong place, wrong time. Leo was in the car too. He survived without a scratch. She died instantly. Matteo's voice was flat, controlled. I couldn't protect her, but I can protect him.
And you.
And Emma. Clara reached out and touched his arm gently. You're a good man, Matteo Ricci. I don't care what people say about you. You don't know what people say. I can imagine. But I know what I see. I see someone who stopped at a gas station when everyone else drove past. Someone who brought strangers into his home. Someone who's risking everything to keep a baby he doesn't even know safe, her voice cracked. That's not a monster. That's a hero. I'm not a hero, Clara. I've done things. I don't care about those things. I care about this.
About now.
About the fact that Leo is laughing in the other room because he feels safe with his father. Before Matteo could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, perimeter's secure. We're locked down tight. Good. Rotate shifts every 4 hours. I want fresh eyes constantly. After Marco left, Clara asked, "What happens now?"
Now?
We wait. Let the Castellanos make their move. And when they do, I'll be ready. And then this ends.
Permanently.
Clara shivered, but not with fear. With something else, understanding maybe. Recognition that the man standing in front of her lived in a different world with different rules. A world where protection came with prices and safety required strength. "Come on," Mateo said, his voice softening. "Let's get you and Emma settled. Tomorrow's soon enough to worry about everything else." As they walked upstairs, Leo's laughter echoed from the living room where Maria was teaching him a card game. Emma cooed softly against Clara's chest. Outside, armed men stood watch in the darkness. Inside this ordinary house, this fortress, this temporary shelter, a makeshift family tried to find peace. But Mateo knew peace was an illusion. The storm was coming, and when it arrived, he'd be ready to face it. Day 6. Afternoon. Mateo had left the safe house at dawn, leaving Marco and 3 guards with Clara, Leo, and Maria. "I'll be back by dinner," he'd promised Leo. "You be good for Maria." Now, standing in his estate's security office, watching the monitors with cold focus, Mateo was glad he'd made that decision. "They're probing the south perimeter," Tony reported, pointing to a screen. 2 men on foot, testing the fence line. "Amateur hour." "Too amateur," Mateo said quietly. "They want us to see them." Distraction? Probably. As if on cue, the north camera alert flashed. 3 more figures, moving through the woods that bordered the property. These ones were trying to be stealthy, dressed in dark clothes, moving with purpose. "There's our real threat," Mateo said. "How many men do we have on property?"
8.
"Plus you. Pull 4 to the north perimeter. Keep 2 on the south as backup. Leave 2 monitoring here." Mateo pulled on a jacket that concealed a shoulder holster. "I'm going out." "Boss, maybe you should." "I'm going out." Tony knew better than to argue. "Yes, sir." Mateo moved through his estate with practiced ease, taking the north path through the garden. His earpiece crackled with updates from his team. 3 subjects, maybe 4, approaching Sector 7. "I see them. Moving to intercept." "Boss, you want them stopped or questioned?" "One of each," Mateo said coldly. "Your choice which." He reached the tree line as his men closed in. There was a brief scuffle, grunts, the sound of fists connecting with flesh, a muffled curse. Then silence. Mateo emerged from the trees to find 2 of his guards holding a man between them. He was young, maybe 25, dressed in black tactical gear that was too new, too clean. A weekend warrior playing at being an enforcer. "The others?" Mateo asked. "One got away. One's not getting up."
Dead.
"Breathing. Unconscious." "Good." Mateo turned his attention to the captured man, who was trying to look tough despite the blood running from his nose. "What's your name?" The man spat. "Go to hell." Mateo smiled without warmth. "We'll get there." "Names first." He nodded to his guards, who tightened their grip. The man gasped in pain. "Danny. Danny Caruso." "There we go." "Manners." Mateo circled him slowly. "Who sent you, Danny?" "I don't." "Wrong answer." Another nod. More pressure. Danny cried out. "Frankie. Frankie Castellano sent us." "Better. Now we're communicating." Mateo stopped in front of him. "What were your orders?" "Just surveillance. Check the property. Look for weak spots." "Weak spots for what?" Danny hesitated. Mateo could see him calculating, weighing his loyalty to Frankie against the pain he was feeling. "For extraction," Danny finally said. "We were supposed to figure out how to get the girl out." "Clara." "I don't know her name. Just the girl with the baby. Frankie wants her."
Why?
"I don't know, man. He doesn't tell us why, just what." Danny's voice was rising, panicked. "He's been obsessed with this for 2 days. Ever since that landlord guy came to him." Mateo's eyes narrowed. "Ray Kowalski." "Yeah, that's him." He came to Frankie 2 days ago, said he knew where some girl was hiding, said she was at your place. Frankie got all excited, said this was the leverage he needed. Leverage for what? I don't know. Something about territory, about proving he's not afraid of you, about making a move. He's been talking crazy, saying he's tired of being small time, that he's going to take what's his. Danny's words tumbled out faster now. Self-preservation, overriding loyalty. He thinks if he has the girl, he can negotiate with you. Make you give him the docks operation, maybe some of the gambling territory. He thinks you care about her. And what did Ray get for this information? Frankie cleared his debts. $3,000. Plus promised protection from other collectors.
So there it was.
Confirmed. Ray Kowalski had sold Clara's location for $3,000 and empty promises. Had set all of this in motion because he was weak and desperate and stupid. How many men does Frankie have on this? Mateo asked. Maybe a dozen? We were supposed to report back about the property layout. He's planning something bigger, maybe tomorrow or the day after. Planning what, specifically? A raid, I think. Come in hard, grab the girl while you're off property, then use her to negotiate. Mateo nodded slowly, processing. Then he looked at his guards. Take him to the basement. Keep him comfortable but secure. And get me everything on Frankie Castellano's current operations, where he runs his business, where he lives, where he eats lunch. Everything. What about the other one? The unconscious guy. Take him too. When he wakes up, I'll want to talk to him. Verified Danny's story. As his men dragged Danny away, the young enforcer now crying, begging, all bravado gone, Mateo stood alone in the woods. He could see his villa through the trees, beautiful and serene in the afternoon light. A fortress that had just been breached, not physically, but in intent. His phone buzzed. Barco. Everything okay there? Heard chatter on the security channel. Mateo typed back. Situation handled. 3 Castellano enforcers tried to infiltrate. 1 captured, 1 unconscious, 1 escaped. Stay alert at the safe house. They might try their next.
Copy.
We're locked down. How's the boy? Ask him yourself.
Put him on.
A moment later, Leo's voice came through, tinny but excited. Daddy, Maria made cookies. That's great, buddy. You being good.
Yes.
Clara showed me how to fold napkins into swans. Well, they're supposed to be swans. Mine look like lumpy ducks. Despite everything, Mateo smiled. I'm sure they're great. I'll be home for dinner, okay? Okay. Love you, Daddy. Love you too. Mateo hung up and stared at his estate. The Castellanos had made their move, sloppy, desperate, but real. They'd sent men into his territory, onto his property, threatening everything he'd built. More importantly, they'd threatened Leo, and Clara, and Emma. That couldn't stand. Mateo walked back to the security office, his mind already working through the next steps. Frankie Castellano wanted leverage? Wanted to play power games? Wanted to prove he wasn't small time. He was about to learn the difference between ambition and capability. The difference between wanting power and actually having it. The difference between making threats and facing consequences. Tony, Mateo said as he entered the security office. Call everyone in. All of them. I want a full crew assembled by tonight. We going to war, boss?
No.
We're ending one before it starts. Mateo's voice was ice. Frankie Castellano thinks he can use an innocent woman and baby as leverage. He's about to discover why that was a mistake. Tony grinned, predatory and fierce.
About time.
What's the play? Gather intelligence first. By tonight, I want to know every move Frankie's making, every position he's taking. We'll hit him where he's weak, dismantle his operation piece by piece. No public violence, no civilian casualties. Clean and professional. And the landlord? Ray Kowalski. Mateo's expression darkened. Him too.
He started this.
Time he understood what happens when you betray trust for pocket change. As his team mobilized, as plans formed and strategies took shape, Matteo thought about Clara in the safe house, about her guilt, her belief that she'd brought this trouble. She was wrong. Ray had brought this. Frankie had chosen this. But Matteo would end it. Tomorrow, the Castellanos would learn a lesson. Tonight, he had a son to have dinner with and a makeshift family to protect. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. And Matteo Ricci was ready. Night fell over the safe house like a curtain. Matteo sat at the dining table with Leo, Clara, and Maria, eating spaghetti and pretending everything was normal. Leo told stories about the video games he'd played. Maria complained about the kitchen being too small. Clara was quiet, watching Matteo with questions in her eyes. After Leo went to bed, Matteo's phone buzzed continuously. Updates, confirmations, positions. He stepped onto the back porch and Clara followed him. "You're leaving again," she said. "Not a question." "In an hour." "To do what?" Matteo looked at her. "To make sure you and Emma can go back to living normal lives. To make sure Leo is safe. By hurting people. By making things very clear to people who don't understand subtlety." He leaned against the railing. "You want me to apologize for what I'm about to do?" "No," Clara surprised him. "I want you to come back safe. Leo needs you." And she hesitated. "We need you." Before Matteo could respond, his phone rang. "Tony, we're ready, boss. Everyone's in position. I'm on my way." Matteo turned to Clara. "Lock the doors behind me. Marco's here, with 3 men. You'll be safe." "Matteo," she reached out, touched his arm. "Thank you. For everything." He nodded and walked into the night. 20 minutes later, Matteo stood in an abandoned warehouse across from Frankie Castellano's social club. His team, 12 men, experienced and loyal, surrounded him. "Status?" he asked quietly. Tony pulled up a tablet showing heat signatures and tracking data. "Frankie's inside with 6 guys. The surveillance cars around your estate? We've identified all 8 vehicles. Teams are in position at each 1 inch. Ray Kowalski. At his apartment in Newark. Alone. Team is waiting for your signal." Vincent, his information broker, stepped forward. "Boss, I got more intel. Frankie's been bragging to other families about his play against you. Word spread. People are watching to see what you do." "Good. Let them watch." Matteo's voice was steel. "Here's how this goes. Teams 1 through 4, disable the surveillance vehicles. I want them gone within the next 10 minutes. No violence unless they resist, but make it clear those vehicles are done. Tow them to our garage, strip them, crush them." "What about the drivers?" "Deliver a message. Their boss made a mistake, and they're lucky we're letting them walk away. They can find new employment or go home. Their choice." Tony grinned. "They'll scatter like roaches. Team 5, Ray Kowalski. Bring him to me. Unharmed, but motivated to cooperate. On it. The rest of us are paying Frankie a visit." Matteo checked his weapon. "This is professional.
Clean.
We go in, we have a conversation, we leave." "Understood." Nods all around. "Move out." The teams dispersed like shadows. Matteo waited, watching his phone as updates came in. Team 1. Vehicle 1 disabled. Driver fled on foot. Team 2. Vehicle 2 and 3 neutralized. Driver secured. Message delivered. Team 4. Vehicles 6 and 7 towed. No resistance. Within 12 minutes, every surveillance vehicle was gone. Frankie's entire network around the Ricci estate dismantled. "Time to visit Frankie," Matteo said. They walked across the street. The social club's door was locked, but Tony had a key, courtesy of a locksmith who owed favors. They entered quietly, professionally. The front room was empty except for a card game, 4 men around a table, cigarette smoke thick in the air. They looked up, saw Matteo and his crew, and froze. "Hands where I can see them," Tony said calmly. "Nobody needs to get hurt." The men complied. They knew Matteo Ricci when they saw him. Knew what it meant that he'd walked through their door. "Where's Frankie?" One man jerked his head toward the back office. "In there." Matteo walked through the club, his men securing the front. He opened the office door without knocking. Frankie Castellano sat behind a cheap desk on the phone. He looked up, saw Matteo, and went pale. The phone clattered from his hand. Matteo. This isn't. Sit down, Frankie. Matteo's voice was conversational, almost friendly. That made it more terrifying. Frankie Saturday. Matteo closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed. You made a mistake. Listen, I can explain. You sent men to my property. You planned to kidnap a woman and baby for my home. You thought you could use them as leverage. Matteo's tone never changed. Did you really think that would work? I wasn't going to hurt them. I just needed. You needed what? Territory? Respect? Power? Matteo shook his head. You have ambition, Frankie. I respect that. But ambition without wisdom gets people killed. Frankie's hands trembled. What do you want? I want you to understand something. That woman in my home? She's under my protection. That means she's untouchable. Her baby? Untouchable. My son? You even breathe in his direction, and what I do to you will become a cautionary tale for the next 50 years. I understand. It's done. I'll back off. Oh, you'll do more than back off. Matteo pulled out his phone and showed Frankie a photo. Surveillance shots of Frankie's gambling houses, his distribution points, his cash collection routes. Your entire operation.
Mapped. Documented.
One word from me, and it all comes down. Simultaneously. You'll be out of business by sunrise. Frankie stared at the photos, his face ashen. But I'm reasonable, Matteo continued. So, here's what happens. You pull every man you have away from my property, my businesses, and my family. You forget Clara exists. You never mention the Ricci name again except with respect. And you pay the woman $50,000. 50, I don't have that kind of. You do. You have it in the safe behind that painting. Matteo nodded at the wall. I know because I know everything about your operation, Frankie. Everything. And that 50,000? That's what you owe Clara for the fear you caused her, for threatening her child, for making her feel unsafe when she was already at her lowest. That's insane. That's fair. And Frankie. Matteo leaned forward. If you refuse, if you resist, if you even think about retaliating, I won't just shut down your operation. I'll make sure every family in the tri-state area knows you threatened a woman and baby under Ricci protection. You'll have no friends, no allies, no future. Frankie was sweating now. You're putting me out of business.
No.
I'm teaching you a lesson. Take it or leave it. Matteo straightened. You have 60 seconds to decide. Frankie looked at the desk, at his hands, at the photos on Matteo's phone. The calculation was simple. Lose money or lose everything. I'll pay, he whispered. I'll stay away. It's done. Smart man. Matteo pocketed his phone. The money will be delivered to my estate by noon tomorrow.
Cash.
And Frankie? Consider this your only warning. There won't be a second 1 inch. He walked out without looking back. At Ray Kowalski's apartment, the landlord sat zip-tied to a chair, sobbing. Tony stood over him, patient and calm. Please, I didn't know. I didn't know it would go this far. Matteo entered the apartment. Ray's crying intensified.
Ray.
Look at me. Matteo waited until the man's tear-filled eyes met his. You sold information about a homeless woman and baby for $3,000. I was desperate. Frankie was going to hurt me. And now you've learned an important lesson. Choosing the wrong side has consequences. Matteo nodded to Tony, who pulled out a legal document. This is a confession. You're going to sign it. It states that you accepted payment from Frankie Castellano to provide information, and that you knowingly endangered Clara Bennett and her child. I'm not signing that. You are. Because if you don't, Frankie will think you cooperated with me anyway, and he'll have no reason not to retaliate against you. But if you sign, I keep this somewhere safe, and you disappear. Leave New Jersey. Start over somewhere else. Your choice. Ray stared at the paper, then at Matteo's implacable face.
He signed.
Good. Now get out of my city. Matteo turned to leave, then paused. And Ray? Clara was a good tenant. She deserved better than what you gave her. Remember that when you're starting your new life. They left Ray in his apartment, untouched but utterly broken. By midnight, it was over. The surveillance network, destroyed. Frankie's operation, crippled and compliant.
Ray Kowalski, gone.
Mateo drove back to the safe house, exhausted but satisfied. The threat was neutralized. Clara and Emma were safe. Tomorrow, they could go home. Day 7 dawned clear and cold, the kind of November morning that promised winter wasn't far away. Mateo stood in the safe house kitchen at 6 a.m., drinking coffee and watching the sunrise paint the sky orange and pink.
Morning. He turned.
Clara stood in the doorway, Emma in her arms, her hair mussed from sleep. She looked different somehow, less haunted, more solid. Like someone who'd been holding her breath for weeks and finally remembered how to breathe. Morning. Sleep okay? Better than I have in months. She poured herself coffee one-handed, a skill she'd perfected over 3 months of motherhood. Is it over? Really over? Really over. Frankie's backing off permanently. Ray Kowalski is leaving New Jersey. Your name's been scrubbed from everything. Mateo paused. You're safe, Clara. You and Emma both. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She set down her coffee and wrapped her free arm around herself. I don't know what to say. Thank you feels so inadequate. You don't need to say anything. But I do. She looked at him directly. You saved my life.
Twice now.
3 times if you count the hospital bills. You put yourself and Leo in danger for us. You gave us a home when we had nowhere. You fought people I didn't even know existed. How do I ever repay that? You don't. It's not a debt. Then what is it? Mateo considered. It's what we do for people who matter. You matter, Clara. To Leo, to Maria, to this household. And that makes you family. Clara couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She cried quietly, Emma squirming against her chest until the baby started crying too. Mateo took Emma gently, giving Clara space to compose herself. Hey, little one, he murmured, rocking the baby. Your mama's okay. She's just happy. Emma's cries settled to whimpers, then silence. She stared up at Mateo with huge eyes, and for a moment he was transported back 6 years, holding Leo for the first time, feeling that overwhelming terror and love. Clara wiped her eyes. You're good with her. Practice. Leo was colicky. I walked miles at 3 a.m. trying to get him to sleep. Sophia was lucky to have you. I was lucky to have her. She made me better than I was. Mateo looked down at Emma. She would have liked you, I think. She had a soft spot for fighters. I don't feel like much of a fighter. Are you kidding? You survived on the streets with an infant. You kept going when most people would have given up. That's not fighting. He handed Emma back. Clara, I need to talk to you about something. Okay, she looked nervous. I run a community kitchen in Newark. It provides free meals to families who need them. No questions asked, no judgment, just food. The woman who manages it is retiring next month. Clara's eyes widened. You want me to manage it?
Yes.
The pay's decent. $50,000 a year plus benefits. Health insurance for you and Emma. The work's hard but meaningful. You'd be helping people like yourself, people who fell through the cracks. Mateo leaned against the counter. You'd be good at it. You're organized, compassionate, and you understand what it's like to need help. 50,000? Clara's voice was barely a whisper. I was making 22,000 at the diner before Emma came. And benefits? Real health insurance. Real everything. It's a legitimate job with a legitimate organization. Tax documents, retirement plan, the works. Clara sat down heavily in a chair. Why would you do this? You've already done so much. Because you need a fresh start, and I need someone I can trust in that position. Someone who'll run it with heart, not just efficiency. Someone who remembers what hunger feels like. He paused. And because I think it's what you're meant to do. Help people. The way you've been helping around here, you have a gift for seeing what needs doing and just doing it. I don't have experience managing anything. You managed to keep yourself and a baby alive on the streets. You can manage a kitchen, Matteo smiled slightly. Maria says you're a natural organizer. Leo says you're the nicest person he's ever met. That's all the references I need. Clara looked at Emma, then back at Matteo.
Yes.
Yes, I want the job. I'll work so hard, I promise. I'll make you proud. I'm already proud. You don't have to prove anything. The sound of small feet thundering down the stairs interrupted them. Leo burst into the kitchen, still in his pajamas. Are we going home today? For real? For real, Matteo confirmed. Pack up your dinosaurs, buddy. Yes. Leo pumped his fist, then noticed Emma in Clara's arms. He walked over and very gently touched the baby's hand. Emma, we're going home. You're going to love the garden. And my room. And Maria's cookies. Clara watched Leo with Emma, and Matteo watched Clara watching Leo. Over the past week, the bond between them had become undeniable. Leo treated Emma like his little sister, protective, gentle, constantly wanting to help. And Clara treated Leo with the same patient affection, never too busy to answer his questions or admire his drawings. They looked like a family. By noon, they were back at the Ricci estate. The villa felt different, lighter somehow, despite everything that had happened. Maria had flowers on every table. The security team had swept every inch and declared it safe. Life was returning to normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. Everything had changed. That evening, after dinner, Matteo found Clara on the terrace, Emma asleep in her carrier. Clara was staring out at the garden, her expression thoughtful. Penny for your thoughts? Matteo asked. I was just thinking. I can't stay here forever. In the guest room, I mean. You've been so generous, but I need my own space. Independence. I know. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, Matteo pointed to the east. See that house through the trees? The white one with the blue shutters. Clara squinted. I think so. It's mine. Small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, nothing fancy. I bought it years ago for estate staff, but it's been empty for a while. It's yours if you want it. Rent-free for the first year while you get on your feet, then we'll figure out something fair. Matteo, I can't. Clara, he cut her off gently. You need a home. Emma needs a home. This gives you independence, but keeps you close. Leo would love having you nearby, he's already attached to Emma. And, honestly, he smiled. It makes Maria happy. She's gotten used to cooking for you. Clara laughed through tears. You've thought of everything. I try. She looked at the house through the trees, then at the villa, then at Matteo. Close, but independent. Exactly. I can come visit? Bring Emma to see Leo. Every day if you want. Or, whenever you want privacy. Your choice. Clara took a deep breath. Okay. Yes. Thank you. We'll move you in tomorrow. Maria's already been over there, stocking the kitchen and making it livable. Of course, she has. Clara shook her head in wonder. Your family is incredible. You're part of that family now. Whether you're in the villa or the house down the street, you're one of us. Matteo met her eyes. That doesn't change. Something passed between them in that moment. Understanding, gratitude, and maybe something more. Something neither of them was quite ready to name. I should get Emma inside, Clara said softly. She needs a bath before bed. Need help. I've got it. But thank you. As she walked away, Matteo stood alone on the terrace, looking at the white house through the trees. A week ago, he'd been a widower going through the motions, his son, his only light. Now he had a makeshift family, a woman who made him think about futures instead of just surviving the present, and a baby who somehow felt like she belonged. The gas station encounter had changed everything. And somehow, Matteo knew the changes were just beginning. 6 weeks later. November had given way to December, and the first snow of the season dusted the Ricci estate like powdered sugar. Matteo pulled through the gates at 5 p.m., tired from a day of meetings and negotiations, the kind of legitimate business that kept his other operations running smoothly. He should have gone straight home. The villa was warm, Maria would have dinner ready, and Leo's homework needed checking. But instead, he found himself driving past his own driveway, heading toward the community kitchen on the east side of Newark. Clara's kitchen. The storefront looked cheerful despite the gray December evening, warm light spilling from the windows, a hand-painted sign reading Newark Community Kitchen. Everyone welcome. Everyone fed through the glass. Mateo could see movement, people gathering for the dinner service. He parked and walked inside. The space was transformed from when he'd last seen it. Clara had organized everything with efficient warmth, tables arranged to encourage conversation, decorations made by local kids taped to the walls, a menu board listing the evening's offerings in cheerful chalk lettering. The smell of baking bread and soup filled the air. And there was Clara. She stood at the serving counter, wearing an apron over jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, laughing at something one of the volunteers said. She looked radiant, healthy, confident, grounded. Nothing like the terrified girl from the gas station. Emma was in a playpen nearby, and sitting cross-legged beside it, making faces at the baby, was Leo. Mateo's son had convinced him that Fridays were Emma days. Days when they'd pick her up from daycare and bring her to the kitchen so Clara could finish her shift without worrying. Leo took his responsibility seriously, treating Emma like she was made of glass and gold. "Daddy." Leo spotted him and waved enthusiastically. "Look," Emma laughed at my dinosaur impression. "Watch." He made an exaggerated roaring face, and Emma, now 4.5 months old, chubby and healthy, burst into delighted giggles. The sound hit Mateo square in the chest. Pure joy, uncomplicated and real. Clara looked up and saw him. Her smile shifted, became softer, more personal. Something just for him. "You're early," she said, wiping her hands on her apron and walking over. "We've got another hour of service." "I know. Thought I'd see how the new manager was doing." "The new manager is doing great. Thank you very much," Clara gestured around the kitchen. "We served 140 people yesterday. Today we're on track for 160. And we got that grant I applied for, $10,000 for expanded programming." "I heard. Congratulations." "Thank you. For everything. The job, the house, She paused, her eyes reflecting the kitchen's warm lights. "The life. I still can't believe this is real sometimes." "It's real." They stood close, surrounded by the noise of volunteers preparing food and families gathering for dinner, and for a moment, nothing else existed. The connection that had been building over 6 weeks, through shared dinners, through Leo's laughter, through late-night conversations when Mateo would walk her home from his villa to her cottage, hung between them, unspoken but undeniable. "Clara." One of the volunteers called out. "We need you." The moment broke. Clara smiled apologetically. "Duty calls. Can you watch Emma?" "Always." Mateo sat beside Leo, watching Clara move through the kitchen with practiced grace, checking food temperatures, greeting guests by name, organizing volunteers with gentle efficiency. She was in her element. This wasn't just a job to her, it was purpose.
"Daddy."
Leo leaned against his shoulder. "Are you going to marry Clara?" Mateo nearly choked.
"What?"
"Why would you ask that?" "Because you look at her the way you looked at Mommy in the pictures. Like she's special." Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. "It's complicated, buddy."
"Why?"
"Because things take time. People need to be ready." Leo considered this with a seriousness only children could muster. "I'm ready. I think Clara's ready too. You're the only one being slow. Is that right?"
"Yep."
"Emma needs a dad and I need a mom. Well, not a replacement mom, because Mommy is always my mom. But like a bonus mom." Clara could be a bonus mom. He looked up with those dark eyes, Sophia's eyes. "Don't you think?" Mateo pulled his son close, breathing in his shampoo smell, feeling the fierce love that had defined every decision since the day Leo was born. "I think Clara is pretty special. And I think we're very lucky she's in our lives. So you'll ask her? When the time is right, promise." Promise. By 6:30, the dinner service was winding down. Volunteers cleaned tables while guests lingered over coffee, grateful for the warmth and food. Clara finally had a moment to sit, collapsing into a chair beside Mateo with exhausted satisfaction. Emma had fallen asleep in her carrier. Leo was showing off his drawings to one of the regular guests, an elderly woman who praised every scribble like it was museum-worthy. "Thank you for bringing him," Clara said quietly. "He makes everyone smile. He's good at that." Takes after his mother, Mateo watched his son, then looked at Clara. "You've built something good here. We built it. This is your kitchen."
No.
"It's yours. I just provided the space. You provided the heart." He reached over and took her hand, a gesture that had become natural over the weeks. "Thank you, Clara, for bringing life back into our home, for making Leo happy, for being you." Clara's eyes glistened. "I should be thanking you. You saved us. You changed everything." "It wasn't me." Mateo glanced at Leo, who was now attempting to teach the elderly woman about Triceratops horns. "It was Leo who saved you that night. He was the one who saw you, who insisted we stop, who refused to leave you behind. I was just following his lead. And now—"
Now.
Mateo squeezed her hand gently. "Now I think he saved all of us. You, Emma, me. We were all lost in our own ways. And somehow, at that gas station, at exactly the right moment, we found each other." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder, another gesture that had become natural, comfortable, right? "It was so cold that night. It was, and now." Mateo looked around the warm kitchen, at the people finding community and comfort, at his son laughing, at the baby sleeping peacefully, at the woman beside him who'd somehow become essential. "Now it's warm," he said simply. "Everything's warm." Outside, snow continued to fall, soft and quiet. Inside, a makeshift family sat together in the glow of the community kitchen, a mafia boss learning to open his heart again, a homeless woman who'd found her purpose, a little boy who'd never stopped believing in kindness, and a baby who'd been saved twice by the same man. The gas station encounter that began in freezing darkness had bloomed into something permanent and precious, something that looked a lot like home, like family, like love. And in the warmth of that December evening, surrounded by people who'd become family, Mateo Ricci finally understood what Sophia had been trying to tell him all along. Life doesn't end when you lose someone. It transforms. It opens new doors, brings new people, offers second chances wrapped in unexpected packages. Sometimes salvation arrives at midnight at a gas station. Sometimes it arrives with a 6-year-old boy's simple observation: her baby's cold. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it stays.